Dear learners, hope you have been enjoying the learning of Python. So far, we have been discussing the basics of Python, how to work with shell, etc. This module teaches you how to take input from the user, display the results output on the console, that is monitor, and read an integer, float and string input from the user. This module will also throw light on how to do a fancier output formatting. In all our previous Python scripts, we have assigned values to the variable, that is hard coded. But there are situations where the programs will need to interact with the user. There are barely any programs without getting any input from the user. What is an input? An input is nothing but getting some values from a system or user. For example, if you want to multiply two numbers using your calculator, you need to provide two numbers. These two numbers are the input provided by the user to the calculator. Does it sound simple? Yes. Input can come from any of the input devices, mouse clicks and movements, etc. But in most cases, the input is obtained from a keyboard. For example, you would like to get an input from the user through the keyboard, then print the results back to the user. For getting input, Python provides the function input and print function for displaying the output. Let us now explore how to use these functions with examples. First, we are going to see the input function. Input function takes an optional string as argument, which is the prompt, and displays it to the user. Then it waits for the user to type something, that is a text, and press the enter key. Once the user has pressed the enter, the input function returns the text that the user has entered and stores it in a variable. The syntax for the input is, so here you can see the syntax for the input function. Use the keyword input, within parenthesis you have to give the prompt. The prompt is an optional. So in the example, we are not seeing any prompt, we are just invoking the function input. So this reads an input from the user and prints the same back to the user. If you want to prompt the user with what to enter, then do as shown. Here we prompt the user to enter your name. So this is giving a clue to the user that he is supposed to enter the name. So we have here a statement, input enter your name. The entered input will be stored in the name variable, and again we are printing it back to the user. This way of getting input is more interactive than the previous one. Is the prompt compulsory? It is better to display a prompt telling the user what they are supposed to give. You can pass a string to be displayed to the user before getting the input. Python 3 has a input function to accept the user input, whereas if you use Python 2, then use raw underscore input function instead of input function. Understand that whatever you enter as an input, the input function always accepts it as a string only. If you enter an integer value, the input function accepts it as a string only. See an example for checking this. Here we have a prompt for the user to enter an integer. The user will enter an integer, say for example 10, and the 10 is again displayed on the screen, and we have used type function to find what is the type of I. Even though we have entered the integer, where the type will return only the string, because by nature input will accept the user input only as a string. As I told you, even though I have entered integer, I am getting the type of I as string only. If this input has to be transformed into another data type as needed, we can use either a typecasting function or the eval function. Let us have a look at examples for each of these functions. First, we will write a script to add two integer numbers. See the program over the screen and the output 2. So, here we have a program to add two numbers. So, there are two input function, each one for reading one input, and also note the prompt. So, the prompt lets the user to enter the first number and second number one by one. Then note that we have used a type conversion function int. So, this int converts the entered number, which is actually a string, into an integer, and that integer is stored in number 1. Similarly, we do for number 2. Now, number 1 and number 2 will be integer, not string, because we have typecasted it. Then you can add the number and you are printing the sum. Again you are checking for the type of number 1. As we have converted it into integer, it is stating that the class of number 1 is integer, not a string. So, this is how we have to do type conversion. As you have seen, we explicitly added a cast of an integer type to an input function. That is, we have converted input string value to the integer type. Because a user can enter anything he wants as an input, the input function always accepts input as a string. So, the easiest way to check whether the user input is a number or a string is to use a type function. Next is how to use eval function for type conversion. It can evaluate even expression provided the input is a string. Let us work out a simple example. So, here we see how to use eval function to convert string to integer. So, even though we have given the expression 2 plus 3 into 4 within code, eval function will convert it into a integer and will produce the result as 14. Then what is next? Of course, float input. Let us see how to accept the float value from the user. You need to convert the user input, which is a string, to a float number as we did for integer value. That is, we have to explicitly add a cast of a float type to an input function. That is, convert input value to a float type. Shall we see an example? Look at the screen. So, this program shows the addition of floating point numbers. So, we are entering a floating point number which is converted into float by using typecasting float. Again, the program is similar to the addition of integer number, and when we check the type of number 1, we get the type as float. In this example, did you notice the special character /n? /n at the end of the prompt represents a new line, which is a special character that causes a line break. That is why the user's input appears below the prompt in that example. /n can be used anywhere within the string according to the output needed by the user. I hope you have gained enough knowledge about input function. Yes? Then what is next? Yes, as you have guessed, it is output statement. Now, how can we display the results on the screen? We have been using the output statement print from the moment we started Python. We use the print function to output the data to the standard output device, that is the screen. We can also output the data to a file, but this will be discussed later. While working with interpreter, you would have seen that when we just type the variable and press enter key, the value of the variable gets displayed on the shell. This is a simple form of output. Well, but this only works when you are working with shell. While creating real world Python scripts, we need to write statements that outputs the results which may be of strings or numbers etc. explicitly. So, for this purpose we use print function. Consider displaying hello. To do so, just type print hello within double quotes and run the script. You can see hello displayed on the screen. We have been using print in our programs we have written so far, but in a simple way, that is, we have just used to display the result without any formatting. So, next we will see the various formatting options of print. First, the syntax of print. So, here you can notice the syntax of print. So, the first argument is the objects which are strings or numbers to be printed. There may be more than one object. Following that, we have a separator. Default value of the separator will be space, but we can use any operator. Third argument will be new line. It could be any other character rather than new line also, but default value will be new line. Then fourth argument is where do we want to write the output, whether it is on the console or on the file. By default, screen will be the output device. Then last one will be flush. If true, if this is set as true, the stream is flushed. Default value is false. Observe the syntax on the screen. Is it confusing? Yes. Let us work out a few examples. Now see the screen. In the first example, print, we have 5 strings, 5 string objects enclosed within double quotes we have printed. So, when you print this line, what output you will be seeing is the problem solving and programming. That is, we are using only the list of objects without any separator or new line etc. Coming to the second example, the same string, but at the end you can notice a separator option where I have given comma as the separator. So, that means all the string objects now will be separated by comma and gets printed, but in the previous example, as I told you, default separator is space. So, that is why we got space. Here I have used comma. So, I am getting comma, the strings which are separated by comma. Then coming to the third example, suppose x is equal to 10, then we are printing the value of x, just we get 10 as the output. See the last print statement where apart from printing the value of x, we are using a separator also. So, what is the separator I have used? I have used 4 separator. Then how the output would be? X is equal to, then the separator would be used to separate the object. So, first object is x is equal to and second object is x, which is separated by 4 zeros. So, that is why we get the answer as 0 0 0 0 1 0. Here we see few more examples of how to work with formatting functions of print. So, in the first print statement, along with the object and separator, we have also used 3 new line characters, and in the second print statement, we can see a different separator and a different end characters, and in the last print statement, we have used only 0 as the separator. See what is the output you are getting? For the first print statement, we get x is equal to separated by the 4 separator and the value of x. As we have 3 new line characters, there are 3 blank lines. Following that, the next print statement x is equal to and x with the separator hash, and following that the value of x with the n character as 4 and symbol. Then following that we have the third print statement. Here also you can see few examples of how to use print statement along with some separators and n symbol, and also notice the output. We can also combine different types of objects as you see here. Here I have an integer object followed with the string, again with an integer object separated by double stop. So, what is the output? 5 double star hello double star 9. Are you clear now? Okay. Python has formatting options that help us display the results in a nicer and fancier way. Let us have a glance over them. str.f format is used to format the output in Python. Watch the screen for the syntax of this function. This slide shows the syntax of the format function. str.format, where str is the string on which you want to apply the format method. This function takes 2 sets of arguments. First set is positional argument followed by keyword arguments. The positional arguments are the set of arguments that can be accessed with the index of arguments inside curly braces in the string, whereas keyword arguments are the set of arguments of type key is equal to value that can be accessed with the key of argument inside curly braces in the string. Now, shall we see a few examples for format? See here I have 2 input statements. One is getting the name, other one is getting the age. Note, age is converted to integer. I have used a print statement where I have hi within curly braces 0, you are again within curly braces 1 years old. This is a string on which we want to apply some format. What is the format? Followed format with 2 arguments name comma age. So, here name and age are the positional arguments, as this is not written using key value pair. So, they are positional argument. So, name is the first argument which is represented with the index 0, and age is the second argument which is represented by the index 1. So, when we run this program, we can suppose if the input is Raj and age is 26, curly braces 0 will be replaced with name and 1 within curly braces will be replaced by age. So, here 0 and 1 within curly braces represent the positional arguments. Here we can see one more example of using these positional arguments along with keyword arguments. So, it is not necessary that you have to write only the index like 0 or 1, you can also use the name of the arguments. So, as you can see here, instead of 0 and 1, as I am using the name and age itself as the index value. So, again we will get the same output as we got for the previous example. Coming to the use of keyword argument, here instead of giving the name, reading the name from the user, I am just assigning the name, that is key value pair. So, where name is the key and Raj is the value, again age is the key and 26 is the value. So, now we can use name and age as the index or 0, 1 as the index, or mixed also we can use. So, you can see usage of keyword arguments and also usage of keyword and positional arguments. You just run and see what output you are getting. In case you are using both positional and keyword arguments have to always follow the positional arguments. If you have already worked with a few programming languages, definitely you would have worked on aligning the output text and specifying a width, etc. How this alignment can be done in Python? Let us try. So, here what we see is the alignment of a text. So, I have a text called Python programming which is aligned three ways. So, colon less than indicates left alignment, colon right hand indicates right alignment, and colon with cap symbol indicates center alignment. So, you can see the output, and the 30 represents the number of spaces for printing the string. So, here Python programming has less than 30 characters. So, the remaining spaces or the remaining places are filled with space, empty space. I think this is enough for string formatting. Now, we are going to see about formatting of numbers. Here again we are using format function only. As you can see, there are various format specifier for formatting numbers. You can use D for decimal, B for binary, O for octal, small x for hexadecimal format with lowercase, capital X hexadecimal format with uppercase, small e for exponential notation with lowercase e, and capital E for exponentiation notation with uppercase, and F to represent fixed point number. Now, we will try these formatting options. So, in the first print example, we are applying the format on the integer 2019. So, this is using colon D, that means it is an integer format. Then coming to the next example, where I have colon F, which represent it is a floating point number with percentage F, and similarly we are printing the value of 14 in binary, octal, hexa and so on, and also we print the number 14,000 in exponential format using colon E. So, you can see the output. Please note that the floating point number is rounded off to 6 digit. This you would have noticed in your previous slide. Numbers can also be formatted with padding. Let us try a few statements. So, here in the print statement, as you can see, we have colon 6D, which means the integer number needs to be printed as a 6 digit number, but the actual number to be printed is a 2 digit number, that is 10. So, when you notice the output, there are 4 blank spaces left, following that 2 digits are printed, that is 10 is printed, as you can see on the screen. And note that second print statement, where I want to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but with the format 2D. So, if the width is smaller, it is not considered for the numbers longer than padding. Then coming to the third example, where I have the formatting option as 8.3 F. F means float, 8 indicates the number is to be printed as an 8 digit number, of which 3 digit is for the decimal point. So, 12.34567 will be printed as 12.346. So, as I told you, 0.3 represent 3 digits after the decimal point and 12 represent the integer portion. So, totally we have, including the decimal point, we have 6 digits, the remaining 2 digits are left blank. Next, we are going to look into how to format the numbers with sign, that is positive and negative numbers. Try the example on the screen. So, this slide shows how to format positive and negative numbers, that is formatting options what we have for sign numbers. If you simply use colon F, it will be printed as you know, that is it gets printed as 7.89 with 4 zeros, because as I told you 6 digits will be displayed after the decimal point. and the first input is positive number and the second object is the negative number. So, we are getting as such. Then coming to the second example, notice that a space between colon and F. If it is so, then the output will be printed by leaving one space, that you could notice. If you are not able to notice over the screen, please run this program on Python ideally and check. Then coming to the third example, I have used plus to represent the positive number and also I have given plus for the negative number. So, when I use plus, the number will be preceded with plus, but previous example did not show the plus, it has left a space, but when I use plus space, plus will itself be displayed as the output, and the second number is negative, but it is displayed as such. Then coming to the fourth example, suppose you do not want to print the positive number with plus sign. If there is a no sign, it is assumed that it is a positive number. Suppose if you want to do like that, then you can give colon minus F. So, here you notice that the display, you can notice that 7.89 is displayed as such without leaving space or anything. So, this is how you can go for different formatting options for positive and negative numbers. Earlier we saw how to display the strings with right, left and center align. Shall we try the alignment of numbers? So, this example shows how to align or format integer numbers. So, as we saw for text, greater than symbol for right alignment, less than symbol for left alignment, cap symbol for center alignment, and using 0 will replace the unused space with 0, that is it is padded with 0. So, just run and see how you are getting the output. This is an example of how to format floating point numbers, exactly what we have had for integer, the same operators, the same formatting options you can use for floating point number also. So, you just try these examples also to understand the number alignment for integer and floating points. Now, I hope you can play very well with print and use it for producing fancier output. At last, now you know that you would use the print function to output the data to the standard output device, that is the screen, and input function if you want to read the input from the user through the keyboard, right. But we have another option wherein we can read from a file and also write the results onto the file. When you use the keyboard, you have to give the input for every run of the script, even if you give the same input for every run. That is, you are not able to store and feed the same input whenever needed. Similarly, when the output is shown on the console, it remains on the console till we clear the screen or close the console, but we cannot store the output for long time. So, to feed the input and store the output for long time, we can go for files. File is a named location on hard disk to store information. It is used to permanently store data in a non-volatile memory like hard disk. Files let us to write the output onto them and read from them whenever needed. We will be discussing about reading from and writing onto the files in forthcoming modules. So, let us wind up this module. To recapitulate, in this module we have learned how to get input from the user and also display the results on the console. Also, we have discussed how to read integer, float and string values and how to convert string input into the required format. Finally, we saw different ways of formatting options of string, integer and floating point numbers. The next module will be on conditional statements such as if else, etc. Have a good day. Thank you.